I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Roslyn Kwong. I am the director for Tier 2 and 3 solutions here at Character Strong, and I'm so glad that you are joining us today. And today, you're joining us for what we call our deep dive training for our Tier 2 curriculum. And I'm really excited that you are able to join me. I do want to just quickly orient all of you, though, that we are in the process of transitioning in terms of our platform. So, in today's training, you will get to see what the new platform with the new updates will look like. However, the updates will not be live for you all until August, and the launch date for our new phase of our Tier 2 it's actually August 21st, and that's the reason why I also wanted you to know that if you are someone that prefers to learn while you're able to kind of go in and click on the different places, then we do have an upcoming deep dive training after the launch as well, then that way, by that time, you will be able to navigate the platform exactly as shown. So I just wanted to let you know that if that is your learning style, you're like, oh, I would rather be able to actually go in and click on the places that I'm doing, that I'm clicking along the way as I'm doing this training, then know that there is a link, and what I'll do is I'll also make sure that I can get that for you too in a moment so that you can register for that deep dive instead. But if you're someone that is hoping to maybe learn all the concepts for Tier 2, and then you're okay with seeing us demonstrate before you hop in and try out those clicks, then you're definitely welcome to stay with us because we'll be going through what the new platform will look like as well. So if Tier 2 especially is new to you, then we will be going over a lot of the concepts for you. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear. If you're hoping that you will be able to click along today, then unfortunately the new website or the new updates will not be available to you until August. So, yeah, so feel free if you think that your learning style is more like, oh, I would rather that when you're presenting that I'm able to go into the platform and click on things, then please feel free to join us in August. You will be able to find our, let me go ahead and get that link in the chat for you. And that way you can join us. And the next deep dive is going to be on August 13th. So let me go ahead and put that link in the chat for us. So I'll go ahead and drop that in. By that time, it will be a lot closer to our full launch and you will be able to go in. Okay. All right. Great. So let me go ahead and have us get started today. Again, my name is Roslyn Kwong. I'm really glad that I get to be here with you today to go over our Tier 2 platform. To start with, if you wouldn't mind dropping in the chat what your likings are about hot weather. And I would be very curious to where in the country maybe you're at too, so that I'll know. Oh, I can see some varying answers. Emily is actually a nine. You love it. And then we have folks that's like one or two. And Alyssa, you're in California and you're at a six, so it's okay for you. You're okay with the weather. I'm wondering too, when it's not so humid in California, maybe it's a little bit easier to be able to tolerate that. I'm seeing some oh, Emily, you're at a nine for Iowa. And I was actually just in Iowa last week, the beginning of last week, and I think the humidity there was rising, and they were saying that was getting really hot by the time that we left from our PD time. They were saying that it would get up to the hundreds, so it's really hot. So I'm so glad that you're at a nine, so you love it. And some of us may not prefer it, and that's great. Now, the reason why I wanted to be able to do this, one is to get a sense about where you're at and also how, what you like and things like that. But also, just wanted to be able to show you this is one of our connection games that we use during our Tier 2 small group support. So this is something that we would do with students in order for us to build that relationship. Here at Character Strong, we really do value relationships. And we think that with relationships, that's when we're able to be able to help our students learn and also achieve the most positive outcome. So, and I'm kind of curious too, from our time today, what do you think, if you can name one thing that you would like to get the most out of? So that we can kind of level up in terms of expectations so that we can make sure that we are trying to meet your expectations. And I can also share what our plans are for today. So if you wouldn't mind, anybody that's willing to let us know, you can either unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. Okay, so I'm seeing the new platform, the best way to utilize Tier 2, new platform understanding. So I'm guessing for some of us, if you're hoping to see what the changes are like in the platform, then you are probably not new to Tier 2. So I just want to level set in order for you to know that some of the things that we will be reviewing today, like concepts of Tier 2, may be very familiar with for you already. So if that's the case, then I do ask if you can like hang in there with us. For some of us, this may be actually a newer thing. So it could be that Tier 2 is brand new for some of us who are here today. And so if that's the case, then the concepts that we're going to review will be very helpful. And Rhonda, I love that you're thinking how to use here to write it the right way. So I think what we are able to do is definitely talk a little bit about what are like the small wins, what are things that we want you to actually go in and test out right away. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to have you go in and see some what the new platform looks like, and then also what the whole tier two process is like. Again, for some of us, if you joined us a little bit later, I just wanted you to know that we will demonstrate what the new platform looks like. However, it is not launched just yet, and then there are places where we're still kind of perfecting right now, and the launch for the new platform will be in August. So you will get to see it and some parts of it today, but it's just that you will not be able to go in and click around. So if that is more of your learning style, we do suggest that you can come back and join us for the next deep dive where you will likely have access to our tier 2 platform in its new phase already by that time so that you will be able to actually go in and click around. So I also want to just kind of set up the expectation that deep dive for us, typically, we have a lot of exploration time built into it. You will still get to do it on some of the concepts, on some of the tools that will not change on the platform. However, this time will be more a demonstration for us. So, yeah. So thank you very much. Alyssa, the release of the platform updates in terms of your user experience will be on August 21st. And that same week later, that's when the content will also be released as well. So, yeah. And our deep dive is actually, I think, a week before that. So, because of that, you will likely be able to go in and explore more than right now. So. Yeah, get more comfortable with the new platform. Yes. So just so you would know, again, unfortunately, you will be able to log into the platform. However, we do want you to know that the updates or the new experience of the platform is not ready for you to test out yet. So if you're someone that likes to learn while we are going through um, the clicking, then I would suggest that maybe we want to invite you to come back in August because that will be then you will be able to go in and click around. So what you need to know is that we'll be together for 3 hours. We sometimes would do a deep dive in part one and part two, which makes it maybe a little bit easier for some of us. But I do have a couple of breaks incorporated in between. Also, we always like to say that as a presenter, I'm also totally okay if you need to take care of yourself. If you need to stand up and stretch or walk around, that's totally okay for us. So now this will also be recorded. So just so you would know, we will have this available once it is finished today. So probably by next week, we'll have this training available on the platform as well. So, and as we go into the platform, I'll show you where you would be able to find it. Uh, and Jenny, yes, totally okay if you want to take both deep dives. In fact, if you are able to, this may be a good place for us to do some concept reviews for you to get some sneak peek into the new materials and the new experience. And then in August, you'll be able to really see it live more. Okay, so great. Thank you. Oh, okay. Great. You want to be able to understand to support the school counselor. Well, we're really glad that you're here with us, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to really present our tier two solutions for you. We'll utilize the chat and the raise hand feature. Um, totally okay if you need to be um, taking care of yourself once again. And Andrea, yes, please do take care of yourself and your loved ones. And if you need to come back, totally okay. And if you need to step out, totally okay too. We'll use a special feature from Zoom that's called the annotate. On those slides, though, we'll have um, the instructions again. So, but I wanted to be able to present it to you. What you need to do is just to make sure that you find on the top of your Zoom screen where it says character strong tier 2 3s. You would find that screen where it says it will be my screen that's being shared. You would click on the three dots, or if you have the annotate button, so you can click on the three dots and then click on annotate and on the bar and select a stamp that will allow you to participate and annotate. But I'll go over that again when we get to that place where we are annotating together. Okay, so at this point, if you would like to kind of scroll around in the platform, please feel free to do so. Please log in. And some of us may prefer to just kind of focus on what we're saying and taking notes. That's totally okay as well. Our objectives here today is that as you finish this time with us, we hope that you will leave with the knowledge of the CST2 process and also each of the steps. And also, you will have the knowledge of our small group skill building curricula as well as our performance-based interventions. We also have attendance support, which we will quickly go over as well. And because we are in this transitional state, we hope that you will leave us feeling more curious to see how the new platform can actually be used to guide the process and your delivery of support. So now I'll annotate it's coming. So all you need to do once again is at the top of your Zoom screen, find the place where it says Tier 2, 3 screen. So that would mean that that would be my screen. So when you find that, click on the three dots, or if you already have like an annotate button, click on that. It will allow you to have stamps, and so you would want to select stamps, either a check mark or a heart or anything. So I'm very curious, and that will allow you to stamp directly onto that slide for us. So I'm very curious where, oh, great, we have someone that's figured it out. Where you are on the spectrum. How are you feeling about implementing tier two right now? Are you more in the place where you're like, oh, I'm excited about it, or are you overwhelmed? And totally okay um, if you are in anywhere actually on the spectrum. Okay, so we have some folks that are sort of like in the middle, and then some that's like excited. I'm very curious about those that seem to be very excited and ready. That's really exciting for me. And if you are on the spectrum where you're feeling a little anxious and overwhelmed, I just want you to know that's totally okay. And I'm hopeful that when we spent the time kind of today to uh, spend some time to figure out like what the process is like. Hopefully you would feel less anxious about that. Great. Thank you very much for participating. That always helps me to be able to see where everybody's at. So let me go ahead and go next. Oh, sorry. Let me go back. I'm gonna have to clear. Oh, no, even that. Okay, well, we'll figure that out. Okay, stop sharing for a moment. Sorry about this technical thing. I did not find. Okay, great. All right. Now, the way that we have our deep dive, this is how we would have it structured, is that we'll start with the why. For some of us that have been in tier two for a longer time, this will be just a review for you. We'll then talk a little bit about the what as well as the how. So we'll start with why tier two and why the solution will help you actually manage your tier two in a way that's most doable. We'll talk about what more of the concepts and the knowledge, and also the how. We'll model and then explore how to use the platform. So let me start with this as a sort of like an invitation for a chat answer. Why is tier two needed? I'm curious what folks are thinking. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself if you want to share, or you can type in the chat and I'll read that out. So why do we even want to do tier two? Why is it needed? Some student needs more support than tier one. Yes, I really, really appreciate that. Um, to offer more support. Yes. So what we're really thinking about is how tier two can be the most appropriate support for students that need more than just tier one. I'll wait for one more answer. To address gaps. Yes. Tier two really helps us navigate whether a behavior is truly getting in the way of learning before tier three. I think you've made such a great point there, Jenny. When we think about that, is a lot of times if we don't have a tier two, it's almost like, okay, well, we start with tier one, everybody is getting the support that they need. However, whenever you have a student that presents with challenges with in tier one, then it's almost like there is an automatic um, flight for them in order to go to tier three. However, that might not be what they need. They may actually just need a little more support than tier one, and it allows us to have that support without having to just send them directly to into tier three. So it helps implement interventions to more students that need more support than tier one. Yes, very nicely put. It looks like that a lot of us are thinking that our tier two can provide the additional support, and we'll be able to really figure out what type of support they need, and it needs to be more individualized, meaning that it's not, for everybody. So I appreciate you thinking through this with me. Now, when we think about tier two, again, without having to send all students that are struggling or need more support in tier one directly into tier two, it's what we consider to be more early intervention. And really getting it right, it's basically getting early intervention right so that you don't have an automatic jump from tier one to three. And it is almost like us thinking a little bit about some of what we call like our early intervention or services that are available even in our medical world, right? So, of course, we have the prevention services. Some medical providers are really investing more in prevention, which is more of what we think of as tier one, right? So, if you do a mammogram or if you do a medical exam, then you may actually get some bonus back for some insurance because you're doing the prevention services. So that's the exciting part. However, with that screening, if they are finding that you are at a place where you may what you're having may develop into something more severe, instead of waiting for it to become some medical problem that is way advanced, what we have is early intervention. We want to be able to take care of it before it develops into something a lot bigger. And so that's exactly what tier two is early intervention. So again, I love the language that a lot of folks are using in the chat. It's more support, right? So, but it's not for everybody. And also it helps us not jump to having to consider it like a very big issue, like as in more tailored support in tier three. So yeah, and strong learning strong strategies to cope with undesired feelings or behaviors can prevent crisis and outbursts. That's so nicely put. I love the way you're describing it. Yeah, so what is tier two? It's early intervention. It provides the student support before it becomes a larger need, right? So this when we think about tier two also, it's important to emphasize that it is a team sport, meaning that's not one person, but it's the whole team that is invested in the problem-solving process. And it involves collecting data because it's with the data that we can make decisions based on that. And it's a problem-solving process. It's a process where we're providing that support, but it's tailored. I think someone mentioned in the chat that it is individualized in a way. It's tailored based on what we see the needs are. And it's precise support, meaning we are determining and providing the exact supports to students who need it right when the need emerges. Again, we don't wait till it develops into something bigger like a crisis or outburst. But we want to see when we see the need is there, we want to act upon it. And 10 to 15% of students with need would usually warrant tier two intervention. So it's more beyond our tier one. So this is what we call a formula. This is how we get there, right? So when we think about what tier two it's going to look like, we start with the who, meaning that it's only some students, so not everybody. And then the support that we're giving is targeted, meaning that it's very specific to the needs, the emerging needs of the students. And then the how is how we get there is to have everybody engage or the team engage in a problem solving process. So that's how tier two looks like. Um, so we chose the students from low test score, or is it the data from last year's school? Well, I think, Rhonda, that's a very good question. I would love for some of our other participants too to be able to kind of talk a little bit about that in a moment when we get to a place where we're talking about where we are getting the data. We can definitely kind of talk about what each building is doing or what your systems are all doing in terms of selecting and looking at the data in order for you to make that decision. So that's a great point. And when we get to that part, we'll expand on that a little bit more. So when we think about tier one support, we often use this analogy. Can I get like a quick thumbs up or maybe like a response or reaction if you can find the react button about among us who have heard of this analogy about the different tiers of support with the ice cream sundae. I was kind of curious if anybody has heard of that. Okay, yeah, I see a couple of checks. Yes. So, but I see some folks actually kind of shaking their heads. So I'll go over it really quickly about what that is. A quick way for us to remember or think about our tier one and two and three support is almost like we're thinking about the ice cream sundae. So what we mean by that is when we look at our tier one, which basically means everybody gets it, right? So everybody within your system, in your building, they are getting the tier one support. And so it's almost like, okay, well, everybody gets the ice cream. However, not everybody needs more than an ice cream. Some kids with just and the ice cream is great, but some of them may actually need a little bit more than that. So if that's the case, then maybe we're thinking about how they need some chocolate sauce or caramel or, hot fudge on top of that. Still, that may not fill up the needs of some of our students and they may need more than that. So they may need some sprinkles and whipped cream and a cherry on top. Um, but the one thing that's kind of significant when we think a little bit about that is just the fact that for our tier one, everybody gets it, right? And not everybody needs that extra chocolate sauce or fudge on there. However, they actually would still get the ice cream because just eating the chocolate sauce or the fudge will make us sick. So we need to have a good foundation of our tier one. And then for those that needs it, we have a little bit more. And then for our tier three, that's when they need even more than that. So just the ice cream and the fudge doesn't fill them up. Another way that I think about what tier two supports are, it's almost like when you think about your dentist needs or dental work need. When we think about tier one, it's like everybody gets their um, brushing of their teeth and their teeth cleaning and checkups, right? So that's sort of like tier one, meaning that everybody, if you want dental health, you want to be able to do that. Some of us may need some deep cleaning, which is more tier two, and that's preventative too. If you do the deep cleaning, it will prevent more serious problems. But some of us will need even more than that. So, and not everybody would need all three levels, but when we get to a place where more needs are there, then we're actually thinking about how we would need all three layers of support. So let us continue with that. And so when we think about this, I want to be able to give you a knowledge check and show you where it's at so that you can find it on the platform. And I'll also give you a quick link in the chat in a moment so that you can see it too. Right here in our tier two platform, the way that it is now, you will be able to get a knowledge check. That would be our overview. And when we come to the getting started, there will be different resources that are available here for you. For those of you that are new to the platform, there are a lot of videos. The way that it will be presented will be a little bit different, and I'll show you in a moment what that new looks like. But getting started, it's always a great place in order to think about that. I want to come here to our I am so sorry. My brain is blanking on that. Okay. Oh, so what I invite you to do is if you are on the platform, go ahead and navigate to the left panel where it says Tier 2 Solution, and you can click on Getting Started. Right here in the middle, you would see a quick links menu. If you go to Professional Training, Learning, and if you scroll down, there's support right here. There's this document that it's called CST2 Knowledge Check. I'm going to put that in our chat as well so that you can access that right away. You don't have to complete it right now, but what I want you to do is to take a look at it and do it as sort of like a pre-check and ask yourself, Um, what do I know about tier two? What do I know around tier two solution and also the components of it? We will come back to it later. This is also something that we suggest that you can use with your team in order for you to check with your team what what level they're at in terms of their understanding of it. That will show you the gap in terms of how you can get additional support. And so this is our knowledge check that will be helpful for you. So before your team even begins the tier two process, if you haven't started yet, we do suggest that you can go through different pages in order to familiarize yourself with it. So from now until August, the way that the platform it's going to look like, I will show you a couple of things that might be helpful for your team if you want to explore now, and then I will also go to the new site in order to show you what that looks like. Mm, Okay. So this is what the current site looks like. If you're just starting out with Character Strong Tier 2, coming to the Getting Started page is a great place to start. It will allow you and your team to come into looking at some of the professional learning as well as get deeper understanding of the process. So there are videos on different parts of the process. So this is a great way to explore. Sorry for the scrolling. You can also look at implementation support. Video library is here as well as the document library will also be here. So if once again, if you are starting out, the getting started page right here on tier two solutions is great for you. Now, what will it look like? So let's say that your team is coming back in August when we do have the new face. What it will look like is this. So you will have an access to tier two and there are different parts of it. What would be the most helpful for you will likely be the training and resource hub. This is what it will look like. In a moment, we will talk about readiness as well as teaming and the detect and triage. All of that you can go in and explore with the recommended resources and some of the checklists that we will be going over today. Delivery dashboard and analytics is a little bit different, as well as the intervention library, and you get a glimpse of that later today. But on the training and resources page is where you will find the information to get started. It would also have the recorded trainings as well as the resource library here. So this is what the new site will look like. I just want to quickly show that with, share that with you. Okay. So let's dive in. So normally in a deep dive, I would like for you to explore some of our resources, but I do invite you to do that once we have the new platform because we are worried about how it might be very confusing right now as we're in the transition. So let's jump in to talk a little bit about the what and the how, meaning, the core concepts as well as exploring the how to do our CST2 process. Um, this is what our CST process will look like. So today, our hope is that we'll be able to quickly talk about readiness and have you reflect a little bit on the readiness of your team. And then we'll also go through each of the steps as well. So as you can see, before we even start with step one within our process, we always start with readiness and what we call readiness to implement. What we know is that up to 80% of implementation efforts actually fail if we don't think about the readiness of the team and also the readiness for your system to actually implement it. And that's the reason why um, Character Strong actually focuses a lot on that whole idea of getting ready and getting your team ready because that will help you with implementing with the most successful outcome. When we think about pre-implementation, meaning that before we even start the process. Pre-implementation work is really important because we want to get the adults ready, we want to get the systems ready, so that when you start engaging in the practices, that we will be able to see change. That will help us to see behavior change, not only in the students, but also in the facilitators and those that are involved in the team. So when we think about active implementation, that is adopting the practices, but also really continuing with these processes continuously with improving them so that we can reach high fidelity and then also sustain the implementation. When we think about implementation and pre-implementation and readiness, we often start with the idea of whole school readiness. Now, readiness is really important for us because if we're all engaging in the same practice with the same goal in mind and going the right direction, that is when we'll be able to get the desired tier two outcomes. So the way that we think about it is that we need everybody in the same boat first. So what we mean by that is we want everybody in the team to have clarity about why tier two is important and why it will help us to get to our desired outcomes. So I want to give you a moment, just a few seconds, to think a little bit about whether you feel like within your building, within your system, that you have everybody in the same boat, meaning that do we have clarity about what we're doing and where we're going? In addition to being in the same boat, we also want to think about using the same pedals, meaning that we're going to actually use the same practices, right? And we're going to do, which is the rolling, in the same direction because it helps us to really think through that everybody is doing the same thing and everybody is actually doing the same practices that will not only help us to collect information about how we're doing, if everybody's doing the same thing, but that will also help us really evaluate how responsive our students are to being to the practices. So it's really important to make sure that we all have the same pedals as well. And once everybody is in the same boat, we have the same pedals, we have the same process and resources, we want to start rolling in the same direction. Do we have a clear outcome of what we have in mind? So, what want to um, have us to think a little bit about is what being in that same boat means. Is that shared clarity and commitment. We want to make sure that everybody in the team knows what the purpose of tier two is, as well as you all do, because you all were able to do some great suggestions about why we do tier two. We want everybody to be very clear about the tier two process, what that's like. And then also we want them to have clarity about the menus of support, meaning that they know exactly what practices they're going to do. So this is where we're going to do an annotate again. So you see three corners. Upper right corner is you feel like you have somewhat of a tier two team right now. Um, if you don't have a tier two team just yet, we would like for you to stamp in the lower left corner. Or if you have a very full tier two team, you can put a stamp in the lower right corner. I'm seeing the stamping coming in. Thank you again for participating. That's very helpful. I'm seeing most stamps mostly right now and the somewhat of a tier two team. Somewhat, yes. And yeah, feel free to totally put it in the chat as well. Um, that will be just as great. Thanks, Sarah. Okay. Makes me very curious who that person is. That has a full team. That's very exciting. And a few of us may not have a tier two team yet. So based on whether you have a team, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can quickly change us to our resources that are there. Great. So this resource is going to be in the new platform. It's going to be under training and resources, and it will be under whole school readiness. And once you click into the whole school readiness, there is what we called a slide deck. If you are, like many of us have indicated in the slide, that you don't have a team yet, or you have somewhat of a team, um, if that's the case, then you may want to orient your team or people that will be in your team what tier two is. Now, this particular slide deck actually walks through what the tier two solution is. So you can download that slide deck in order to share with your team. You can even, use it in a meeting in order to talk about that. Again, the purpose is to establish clarity. So there will be this slide deck that will be very helpful. There's also an overview document that will guide you in thinking through what readiness really is and how do we start the process. So this particular tool, it's also very helpful, and you can find it here, or you will find it here in new platform. In a moment, I'll show you where it's at currently. So if you want to do some of the work during this time before the new platform launches. Then one other resource that's very important, it's what we call the clarity checklist. This allows your team to think through whether they are actually in the same boat. We want you to be able to have some kind of a tool to think through with your team. Are we clear with everybody? So this is what we call a clarity checklist. This is definitely something that it's a great tool to have for school readiness. Again, in the new platform, it will be under Training and Resource Hub. Currently, you can also easily find that in the tier 2 solution for now in our CST2 process. And the first page in the CST2 process is readiness. So right here, you have the overview as well as the slide deck that I showed you earlier about tier 2, and the clarity checklist is here for that. So I want to quickly show you this. And you can get to these resources here. And as you're thinking about your team also, you want to definitely think through who's on your team. I saw that some of you have a full team, which is something that's very exciting. Congratulations on that. And if you do have somewhat of a team or not a team just yet, we want you to think through who's on the team. And in a moment, I'll also share with you where this resource is so that you can think through what the expertise is. Now, you want folks on your team with specific expertise to form your tier 2 team. So if you don't have one yet, the good news is that you can actually use some of these tools in order to form that. So you want to think about someone that has the different types of expertise, whether it is in behavior, whether it's in data, whether it's in special ed. Know though that you don't have to start with a full team. It doesn't mean that you will not start your tier 2 process until you have all these expertise found. Sometimes too, you may have folks, it seems like maybe a lot of you do, based on the way that you have shared in the chat, that some of you may have multiple um, expertise as well. So it's totally okay if that is the case where you are thinking through who among your team would have like a special expertise, and then they can play the role on the team. And again, it doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You don't have to have 9 people on the team. It's great. It's a blessing if you do. But individuals can hold more than one expertise or areas of expertise too. So if you have like a school site, maybe they would be a behavioral expert on the team and even the data expert, right? So you can fulfill multiple roles in there. And then when you think about teaming, we do have another resource that's an inventory. This allows you to think through whether you have all the pieces of effective teaming. So the teaming resources under readiness are going to be really helpful for you. So not only are we looking at what type of expertise and what roles they play, and we also want to think through whether we have the right components within effective teaming. So where that is in our um, platform is that still under the CST2 process, still under readiness. You will find resources, but recruiting team members, team roles and responsibilities. This is the one that I was referring to about areas of expertise. And then you have it available in a Google Doc or just like a regular document. And then you also want to come here and think through the effective teaming inventory. So this will be a great resource to have as well as you think about teaming and the team. And in the new platform, where that will live will also be in the training and resource hub and under teaming. So if you go into teaming, that's where the resources are going to be. Yeah. And again, I do apologize that we won't have the luxury of you being able to explore in there, but hopefully you will know how to access these even, excuse me, with the current platform. This is a list of to-dos for your teaming when you're thinking about that. So this will be a good list to come back to. And if you haven't done so already, think about the top to-dos for your team. Is it making sure that you have the right people in the right seats? Is it creating norms and also a vision? There's a tool in there for that too. Is it really setting up meetings? This is one of the things that I have seen when I've done tier two trainings is that one very important step that you can even take today is to think through what meeting cadence is going to look like. How often are we going to have meetings? Who are the people that will be at the meetings? There are meeting agendas that are being made available in there as well. So we do suggest having at least two meetings per month, and preferably it would be one time per week, depending on resources of your system or your building, of course. And also, we suggest using a structured meeting agenda that helps you think through the 5 step of problem solving too. Okay. And we definitely suggest that you continually assess how your team is functioning with the rubrics that are there. Okay. So now that we have talked a little bit about readiness, we want to start diving into the process. We want to start looking at step 1, which is to detect and process. Someone on the team. Okay. Um, I'm kind of curious about that too, but let's kind of take a look at step 1 in our process, which is to detect and triage. So when we talk about detect and triage, let's kind of take a deeper dive at these two concepts. We'll start with detection. When we say detection, this is for us to proactively detect um, whether students are needing timely intervention. So again, the reason why we want to do proactive detection rather than passive detection is that we want to make sure that when the need emerges, right? Once again, when there is something that may indicate this can develop into something bigger, we want to take action right away. That's what early intervention is. And so proactive detection will help us actually allow us to have a timely intervention as soon as we see the need emerges. And we want to also, in this process, establish the base rate of students who appear to need additional support. So at this point, I'm kind of curious too, whether your team and your system already have a way of knowing how many students right now that need tier two support. We need to make sure that we have like a base rate of how many students we can serve. We want to think about how much capacity we have, which is a very realistic issue that we want to think through. And then we want to think about how to do a roll in and roll out, and how do we roll students in from tier one into tier two. Now, just as a reminder, the quality of your tier one implementation, it's really going to impact how many student will need tier two support. Just like what we've talked about at the beginning of this presentation, how within the medical model, if we're doing prevention, meaning healthy diet or, exercise and all this prevention services, the rate of folks that needs early intervention and even more specialized support will be lower. Because if we do prevention well, then we won't have as many people needing early intervention and specialized support. So, because of that, it's really important to keep in mind that having a strong tier one is actually very important. And if your teams are still trying to figure out how to do that, know that we definitely want to provide the support so that you can strengthen your tier one and also at the same time start implementing a successful tier two as well. Okay, great. Now, I want us to think a little bit about what our triaging processes looks like too. When we think about that, this is a prioritization, right? Um, Andrea, I definitely appreciate the fact that you do already, it seems like, have a system down about how you are collecting that data and how you use it to determine, to detect and triage. Thank you for sharing that. I am sure that that would help a lot of our folks as well, because Andrea actually says that their site uses PBIS data, and that allows them to track behavioral patterns, right? They can rate it and identify at-risk behaviors that really helps them. And Christina says that you use an SSIS universal screener. That's also very exciting to know too, that you are using the screening process for you to be able to do the detection and triage. Again, this is really important for us in this step of the process, is to know and to decide with your team what type of detection system you have. How are you going to triage as well? And what you want to do is to know that how can I tell that some of our students who are receiving tier one support, that support is not sufficient, right? And when they are receiving tier one support, is the student need actually significant enough to warrant tier two? So you may want to consider, even if we see needs emerging, where we should strengthen our efforts. Is it in tier one? If that's the case, we can support tier one more. And then also to think about, is it in tier two where we will be able to provide that support? So here's what you need to get good at. And this doesn't happen overnight, especially for our newer folks to tier two. If this will take a little bit of time for your system to set up to a place where you can have that flow. What we have presented here is just for you to be able to think through. This is what you want to be able to do is proactive detection. Really happy to see in our chat that some folks are doing universal screening. They have existing data that they can use. And we do have some tools that we can talk about too. But then you have to have a system where you're doing triaging because you're making a decision. Because if we don't have a process in place, then everybody will flow directly into tier two or directly into tier three, which is not helpful. Okay, so you want to definitely think about that. Your team will have to determine what data collection methods you use in order to make that decision. Um, and a lot of times, as many of folks have put in the chat, what is really helpful is the student data or what we call like early warning systems. It can be academic system, attendance system, behavior data, or you're using universal screening like some of us are doing. Is there an SEB screener? There is one that comes with our tier two solution with Character Strong, and we'll talk about that shortly. Um, we also want to think a little bit more about structured nomination. So this is a little bit different than what historically maybe like a referral. This is more like when you see a need that is emerging, we nominate a student to receive that support or for that to be highlighted. So there is a resource that walks through that with specific questions, and I will show that. In a moment. So you'll be able to use some of these tools if you don't already have a system. And um, all we're saying is that it's really important to have a system to make sure that you have data that you can use to determine where do how do I figure out who goes from tier one to tier two? Or do we have a system or decision rules about when does a student go back from tier two back to tier one, or maybe from tier two to tier three? So a lot of decisions needs to be made, but there are definitely resources that are available. Yes. Jenny, in terms of questionnaire, yes, we do have screeners. I think some schools or some buildings actually have their universal screener that can also help them make those decisions. But we do want to kind of show you some of the tools that we already have in there. So if your system or your building doesn't have anything right now, there are tools that is already included in the solution. And the first one is the screener called the Strengths and Needs Screener. This is available within CST2. Currently, even with the new update, it would still be a screener that you would do, but it would allow you to reach some conclusions or will help you to see some data to make decisions based on. So this is a tool that eventually we are working toward. This is not in the August release, but the team is continuing to work on actually having this embedded into the platform. But currently, it is a screener that we are providing that you can use. And I'll show you where to find it in a moment. This is one that the educators can complete. And when the student is a little bit older, we also have a self-report. This is the youth screens and needs screener. This allows the student to be able to self-report. They can tell us when they get to a third grade level. We believe that they are able to report on how they are doing. And again, both of these screeners, it allow you to see the summary of data really quickly at the end. So if your systems do not have a current universal screener that you're using, you can consider using these tools. We also have our structure nomination form. This used to be called like a referral form, like in other systems, but we really think that it's important of what we're trying to capture. It's more like what our what we are observing and why we are wanting to make the decisions about providing targeted support. So that's the reason why it is actually a structured nomination form on there. So let me jump over to the platform really quickly and show you where that is. Right. So in the new platform, once you have this new face, it is in the tier two process where we have whole school readiness, teaming, and then we have the detect and triage is right here. There will be some guidance and video forms about how to use these tools. There are also documents about how to administer them, and then some guides for this particular step. The screener itself, you have it in the Google Doc form or Microsoft for systems that actually use Microsoft. We have that as well. And then we have the youth needs screener right here. That is a PDF, but it is embedded where you can get the data really fast about like a summary of the data. Then we have a family nomination form as well as a structured student nomination. So I want to jump to that really quickly. It will always ask you to make a copy of that Google Doc. This is what the student nomination form looks like. It asks for examples and non-examples so that you can think through what type of behaviors you are seeing. Is it internalizing behaviors? Is it externalizing behaviors? This helps the person that's filling it out put in examples and data so that you can make your decisions about whether to have them in. Okay. So, Jenny, we have self-report screener shown, and it helped form my social groups. Oh, great. Yes. Yes, very similarly, we suggest to use a screener. So as long as you are using a screener in order to figure out where the challenges are, where the needs are, this will be great. Will the use screener also be a part of the new platform in the future? That's a great question. In the new platform, at this point in the August release, it will be a part of the documents that are available to you. However, the decision-making process is actually more streamlined in our new platform. So you are using tools either from your existing systems, or you can use our tools in order for you to make the decision when you're adding the student, which is step two and step three. Let me know if I answer your question, Michelle. So they are available, and they are available as screeners that you can use, but not embedded just yet. But know that that's exactly what we're working toward, is that in the August release, it won't be embedded just yet, but we are working toward having our screeners embedded. So before then, before you have our new, you get to our new platform, you can always explore. Currently, in our tier two solution, in tier two, if you click on tier two process, right here, if you go to step one, detect and triage, you scroll down, the same videos will be available, and um, the active and passive consents are here actually. And then you have the screeners. Oh, where are they? Oh, sorry. Right. That's where your strengths and needs screeners are, your youth needs screeners, as well as the nomination forms there as well. That's where it's at currently in our platform. So, it's going to go back here. This is an example. This is a potential recommended timeline of looking at the data. Again, we really believe in collecting the data, but we don't just collect the data for the sake of collecting data. We want to make sure that we think about a timeline of reviewing this data. So this is what a potential um, review may look like. If you have monthly proactive data that's coming in from attendance, from academics, or from, behavior reports, um, you may have like monthly um, data coming in. You and your system may decide to do universal screening 2 times a year. That's what the blue dot is. Or you want to make sure that you review all the structure student nomination at a certain time. Again, this is just an example for you to think through what or how in your system you can do data review so you can make sure that you are reviewing the data. And then right here, if you're really curious about decision making, what decision rules there are, it's important to go into the platform and explore some of the resources. From time to time, we also have topic-specific trainings, and in some of the trainings, we'll talk about database decision making, and we'll talk about decision rules. But right here, this is just a reminder for us to make sure that our system, our building have clear decision rules so that we know when we are actually going to be having students go from tier 1 to 2, 2 to 1, 2 to 3. So making sure that we have very clear ideas and rules about how those decisions are made. Now, I want to quickly talk about capacity rate because this is really important. So when we think about providing effective tier 2 support, it's important to think through capacity because that may be the important place where you would want to start. So instead of just thinking we have a lot of students who need our tier 2 support, it's always important to start with what capacity we have. So let's talk quickly about capacity. There are also some videos and recorded trainings on establishing capacity rate, or how to increase capacity. So I invite you to explore those as well. But really quickly, I want to go over this concept so that you're taking that with you. Now, when we say workforce, these are people who are responsible for delivering tier 2 service to students, right? So I am curious who within your system you're thinking about. They may be the school counselors. We've also seen maybe the resource teacher. Different people may play this role, but when we say workforce, these are the people that are responsible for actually delivering the support. Then we want to think about time, meaning now that we've identified the people who are going to be delivering the support, how much time within their availability can they dedicate to provide tier 2 service? Because we know that there are competing priorities, so we need to know how much time they're able to dedicate to this. Then we also want to think about fluency, meaning that what kind of resources are available for them? Will they be able to uh, do the interventions without a lot of preparation? And I think this is where tier 2 comes in from Character Strong. We are definitely continuing to improve the curriculum so that the support will not take a lot of time for preparation. But we know that as facilitators have done this over and over again, their fluency is actually higher, meaning that it won't take them as much time or as many resources for them to be able to effectively deliver tier 2 services. So once you think about these three concepts, you estimate a capacity rate. And it's important to know and think through that what your base rate is, which is how many student looks like they need the tier two intervention, versus capacity is how many students can you effectively serve. And the capacity rate, once again, is based on who you have in your workforce, how much time each person has, and how fluent they are with delivering these services. And what you want to do is then to compare it, right? So when you think about how, for an example, if 22% of all your students look like they actually need this, but your capacity is only 12%. I will get to that in a moment, Rhonda. Um, and your capacity rate is only 12%, meaning that you can only serve 12% of that. Then what you need to do is to think through how can I do my triaging or what decision rules I have in order to make sure that we can meet the needs. Now, fluency is how competent and confident the person delivering the support feels about that and how maybe how much time and resources they need in order to prep for it. Because as time goes on, the more that you're able to deliver tier two support, it becomes a lot easier for you. And so the facilitator may find that it doesn't take them as long to prepare for it. That means that they may be able to provide more services or do more groups, or they may be able to support more students in a performance-based support. So the fluency is the level of competence and confidence that they have on delivering that. The more over time, when they develop fluency in using tier two support, it actually becomes easier, and and then you will have a higher capacity. So also what goes into fluency too is how much training maybe that they are receiving. So if there is time that they can dedicate to the training or maybe learning or watching some of the videos on the platform, that will improve their fluency. That means that they will be able to take on more students. They can provide more services. Again, when you do have a base rate that is higher than the capacity, you just need to think through how do I then um, triage, because that will be the important thing. If you have 22% that you think you need to provide services for, you have capacity for 12, then you need to figure out, like, out of those 22%, how do I determine who I'm going to put into tier two first? But we still have 10% left, right? Then what do? We may want to work on improving in tier one, maybe specifically on, depending on, of course, like what type of issues that we are facing. If it's more behavioral, maybe it is externalizing, then maybe we can strengthen our regulation part of our tier one process. So increasing the regulation skills and improving that may be very helpful, and that may reduce the rate of student actually needing tier two support. So this example is just for us to think through that base, depending on your base rate, depending on your capacity rate, how you can think through how to set up your system and what decisions you have to make surrounding triaging. Once again, if you want to dive even deeper in capacity or you want to think about how to increase capacity, there are some recorded trainings, and also upcoming we will be providing topic um, specific trainings as well. Yeah. So triaging is just a prioritization, right? So we think about based on what needs our students have and what capacity we have. So we always and recommend that you start with capacity. Knowing your capacity will help you figure out how to meet the needs of the students. Yeah. So I think we've seen that. Proactive and detection and triage. This is important. Um, know that your base rate is going to be influenced by the quality of your tier one, meaning that if your tier one is strong, it can change your base rate. So not as many students may need tier two services. What we also need know is that just we you have that base rate, it doesn't mean service rate. It doesn't mean that for all 22%, you have to provide the 22%. If you don't have that capacity, how do you actually provide that? So, allowing us to have a base rate is just for us to know how to actually refine our triage process, right? So just think about that. So data is just data. It's up to you to interpret, meaning that it's important for you and your system to think through what you need. Now, um, when we look at what it's in the platform, we're getting more specific, right? So just now we were talking about whole school and teaming, and now we're coming in to talk a little bit more about student on a student base. So that's why within the new platform, we have the students for you to be able to add students in there for you to make decisions on. Okay, so um, this is the time where we want you to take some time to explore. If you're very familiar with what we have on the platform, that's great. I want you to know once again that we're in a very specific time space. So even if we go into the platform, I'm actually asking you to go into a place that's different than where you would in the near future. So I just want to kind of give a warning about that. But if you have time now and we are dedicating time for you to be able to explore that, I want to invite you to come to your tier 2 solution. Go to CST2 process and right here, select detect and triage. And we're giving you protected time, just 5 minutes to look at a few things. I'll bring up the slide again. We invite you to look at the strengths and needs screener, um, uh, administration and training deck, meaning that we're asking you to just look at the training deck, which is right here. Okay, so we want you to think a little bit about whether this is a screening tool that you would use or not. So if your system already has something, don't worry about that, but you can open up the screener itself and take a look at it. Um, we also would like to invite you to take a look at the student nomination form and the family nomination form. So just to kind of explore a little bit, in order for you to figure out and think through how you're using this process and what type of detection tools you have. So I'll leave this up for us. And it's just a quick 5 minute that we are going to devote to this process. And then when you're ready, please drop your reflections and comments in the chat. If you have questions, drop it too. I'll make sure we try to answer those too. Okay, so we'll spend about 5 minutes exploring. Heather, thank you for letting me know. I will type in a response in for you so that you can follow along, and then I'll also show on my screen. All right. Let's kind of come back. Thank you so much. It looks like that we've been able to um, kind of talked about a couple of things. Know that I will try to continue to talk more and respond more to your questions. Thank you so much for that. Um, I'll definitely look into that. And I love being able to see how you're interacting with each other too and giving each other ideas about the nomination form and what that's been like for you. So, yeah, thank you, Jenny, for that. And Rhonda, I'm really sorry to hear that you are not able to click. Can you tell me specifically, maybe in the chat, where specifically you're trying to click and not getting access? Is it the training deck? Is it the screener? That would be very helpful for me to problem solve. And which is perfect timing because we're actually coming to a break right now. It will be a short break though. We will take a 5-minute break so that you can stretch, run to the restroom, or bring some water and whichever. And meanwhile, I will continue to answer questions in the chat, and hopefully that will help us get to a place where we can jump to the next step when we come back. Okay. All right. So coming back from a quick break before we dive into step two, um, would you rather climb up a mountain or swim in a cave? So if you wouldn't mind just dropping in the chat for us, is it a one or two? Climb up a mountain. I'm seeing yes, annotate would be totally fine too. See some of you are doing that. That's great. One, two, mountains. I see a lot of mountains. A couple of folks for the swim. Just out of curiosity, it's anybody willing to share why? Why a mountain? And then I'll pick on someone for swimming in the cave.
I share the reason I do the mountain because I don't know how to swim.
I see. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Fresh air and the sights. Yes, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I would rather swim in a cave, but depends on what's in the cave too, right? So, so we see a few people in that. Okay, great. Once again, this is one of the connection games that's within Tier 2. If you haven't explored our curriculum yet, know that that is a part of that. So we do that with students in order to connect with them. We also think that it's really important for us to connect as a team too, working in Tier 2. So we're just glad we get this opportunity to connect with you. So let's dive right into step two. Again, for some of you, you might have a system within your building or your district how to do the definition analyzing and selecting. Know that the process is actually streamlined a lot more in our new platform. So I will show you some of the resources that are existing now, but they will be irrelevant very soon because with the new platform, it's much more streamlined. Okay, so let's dive in and talk about that. Three concepts here, right? Define. What we want to do is to start by defining what the students' needs are, whether it's social, emotional, and behavioral, or academic too. And so we then go into analyzing. So this is where we're trying to determine the root cause of it. And I'll show you some tools that will help you in this process. And select, meaning that we want to select somewhere to start, right? So sometimes I get questions about, well, if we select something, and it doesn't work out, what do we do? It's totally okay. That's why we want you to actually continue to collect the data so that you can make decisions. And it's totally okay if we need to then go back, or if we think about multiple layers of support, that's totally okay too. But it's just that we have to start somewhere. So we want to be able to pick something to start, and that targets what we are hypothesizing as the root cause. So when we are going through the process of really understanding, defining what the needs are, analyzing the needs, we typically try to decide whether it's an acquisition need or performance needs. Yes, Christina. Yeah, definitely. Um, what we will focus on though is more the concept behind the tools, because I think some of the steps you would actually um, have to think about how to do the steps like with concepts, but rather than in the tool itself, I'll show you what it looks like. It would have some guidance on there directly. So acquisition needs is the reason why the need this acquisition needs needed would be um, when the student does not possess the certain knowledge or skills, right? So when we're thinking about them having a need, it's when they're unable to meet the social, emotional, and academic demands, right? So whenever we are looking at that, we're looking at the need, we're trying to analyze it, and we're realizing that they actually don't have the knowledge of this or the skill, right? That's when we decide, okay, this means that they have an acquisition need. We have to do more skill building. But there are times when we are realizing that it's the environment that doesn't sufficiently encourage and motivate the student. It could be that they actually have the skill, they have the knowledge, but what it is that they're not using those skills, or they're not applying that knowledge that they have. And it's maybe a lack of encouragement or motivation in the environment that will allow them to do that. So that's when we would decide that they have a performance need. So we go into the defining. What we're trying to do is to define whether or what the needs are that we need to decrease, right? So what is getting in the way of their functioning? If they're not meeting academic standards, behavior standards, or social emotional standards, what is getting in the way? What needs to change, right? Are there certain behaviors that we need to decrease? And then are there certain behaviors that we need to improve? I'm sure that many of us, among us, there are quite a lot of us that might have a lot of FBA training. And if you do, this is very natural for you. It's easier. But for others, it's kind of going down to the basic. We want to give you the tools so that you can make that definition. You can do that analysis, even if you don't have extensive training in functional behavior analysis, because we think that your students, you are able to determine what they need to decrease, what they need to increase, what needs to get changed in order for them to function effectively. Um, for all of these behaviors, whether they are behaviors that we want to decrease or behaviors that we want to increase, we want to consider the dimension, meaning frequency, meaning how many times it's happening, duration for how long, if they're having an outburst that lasts an hour versus 10 minutes, or intensity. Are we looking at the behaviors that we want to change in terms of the frequency, the duration, or the intensity? And different behaviors may have different dimensions that we need to focus on. So this is just like basically what we talked about. This is just for us to capture the what, meaning the define. First, we determine what we want to see change. Then we have to determine the dimensions of these behaviors that we will measure. And you will only need to choose one dimension you to start with, because that is probably what we need to track right now for each of the behaviors. You're just trying to figure out whether we want to increase frequency or decrease frequency, increase duration or increase intensity or decrease intensity. So it's just one dimension that you need to focus on. And then you're going to think about what areas of behaviors. Is it really social skills that they need? Is it more about their executive functioning? Is it about emotional regulation? And with emotional regulation, we also have separated that into internalizing. That is when the students are experiencing a lot of internalizing emotions that turn them inward. It's usually emotions that are more like sadness or nervousness or worriness, things that kind of turn them inward, versus externalizing behaviors and emotions are the ones that's acted upon outwardly, meaning that they're more often emotions that are outbursts and that are extending outwardly to others, including anger or frustration or more of the mad or like a lot of externalizing emotions that lead to externalizing behaviors. So these are just some ideas. This would be a good slide to come back to if you want to have the terms. Oh, yes. Sorry about that. And unfortunately, I couldn't find my, there we go, my annotate thing. So here it is. Thank you, Christina. So this one right here, these are behaviors to decrease. So you may want to kind of think through using these terms to describe those behaviors. And then this next one are behaviors that you want to increase. The good news is in the tool itself, they all pair with the interventions and support that the student would need. So it becomes very easy for you to then select. So again, this is that. So once we get through the definition, which is defining the behavior, then we get into the analysis. This is when we analyze what the root cause is and why the needs exist. For some of you, all of this can actually be happening in your other systems, so that's totally okay. Or if you want to use our tools in order to do this, that's good too. Again, this is where we're trying to determine what the root cause of the need would be. Is it this or that? So we first define the need and then we figure out why the need exists. Mainly, it's for us to identify whether it's an acquisition need or a performance need. And when we see that they are lacking in the skills, what the environment is challenging us to do, is expecting us to do, is actually more than what the student has knowledge and skills for, then that's the gap. You would go with acquisition need versus for performance needs, we know that they know, but there's a gap between knowing, having the skills, and having the knowledge to the doing of it. And they they are able to know, like they have the skills, but it's just that they're not able to perform it. So there is a performance gap. So with that, what we are hoping to do is to change the environment, right? So that's when we think that there is a performance need. So those are the two things. This is what it looks like, and in a moment, I'm going to demo with the tool itself. Again, some schools and districts, you may already have some robust data collection and planning tools that's embedded in your systems. So in your SIS or SMS, if you already have that, if that's the case, you can actually go directly into our selection in order for you to just select. But we don't necessarily, if your system doesn't have that, we have the tools to help you with that.
Rosalind,
So
can I ask a question? I'm so sorry to
yes.
interrupt. What you were just showing about the acquisition need, that is that available in any kind of slide deck that we can use with our, like, for example, I'm the school counselor, and when I'm having teachers, share about students that they feel need support,
Mhm.
I think it would be helpful to like show them that, like, what do you think do they not have the skill? Do they, some kind of slide deck that we can share with teachers to help them help us decide how to support the student. Does that make any sense? Am I making
Yes.
sense? I'm sorry.
Yes, no, that's actually a great question. I think that it is in one of our tools, which is called the precision tools. But what I can do also is to take those slides and email them to you. So I will email you those slides, particularly about acquisition needs versus performance needs, and then I will also link in my email the resources that we have on the site already.
Thank you
That
so much.
okay, no problem. All right, so let's dive in. And for folks that are really curious about the new platform, we will be going in the platform right now. So you can join us. Here we go. Okay. Oh, great. Sorry about that. Just dropped my. Oops. Okay. So this morning we basically spent quite a lot of time doing training in Resource Hub, but in here, now that we're in step 2, you will be going to our delivery dashboard that's in the new platform. And what you would want to do is to come to students. So you can either start with the support management. This is where you get a snapshot, as well as the support about who's in what support. But it makes more sense for us to start with the student. This is a little bit different than how it used to be. For us, you can actually enter students in there and then group them together in a new platform. So in terms of entering student, this is more like a tier 3 platform if you are familiar with that. So what you would do is to go ahead and add a student. This allow you to see for if you're an administrator in your role, you may want to see all the school supports versus my support. These are students that are assigned specifically to you in your facilitation. So you would go ahead and add a student like this. Let's say I'm just going to add myself. Let me and then whether they are special ed or not, yes or no. Leave that. It's not a requirement. Whatever student ID you want to, then you can go ahead and hit submit. This will allow you to add the student. And now I have the student right here, but the student is not attached to any support just yet. So I'm going to click on this. This will allow me to come into the student's record. Right here, identify student need. So again, if your system already has some data collection, your student information system have a way to manage this, you can manually match your student without going through the decision tree. The decision tree will be able to help you think through the whole process, basically. So I'm going to start matching. This is where I can think through whether it is a performance-based support. This has a little bit of the wording to tell you what that means. A skill building curriculum, which is the acquisition need, if the student is lacking in the skills to meet the expectation, or is it attendance support? We'll be able to showcase that really quickly as well a little bit later on. Let's say I'm going to go with performance-based support. Then I can click next, and it will allow me to think through which of these support I would start with first. Performance support, these are the appropriate. Oh, I'm just realizing that this is wrong. See, thank you for helping me discover these things too. The wording. So this allows me to select, let's say that I think check in and check out would be a great intervention, a good match for this. I'll go ahead and do this. And then go next. Then they're matched with that. And I say next. This kind of forces me to think about when I'm going to start. Let's say I'm going to start toward the end of August or like mid-August. But check in, check out, I'll do daily. And I can add who the informant is for my progress monitoring. My team member, Nicole. Let's say that she will be the person that will inform me of progress and will tell me about how the student is progressing. So now under my profile, there's an active status, and this will allow me to start providing services for them. Okay. Once I click into it, it will allow me to access the script, the fidelity tool, and the example forms, all under this particular support. I also want to show you if it is about skill-based, and later on we will also look at that. So let's say that I have selected from the decision tree earlier that it is skill building. This will allow me to assign other students into the same group. This is a group that I've kind of created in order for us, and I'll get into creating the group in a moment. But this will allow me to track the student where they're at if they're delivering. So really quickly, is there any way to export the data into a dashboard instead of having to input each student name and demographics? Yes, that's actually a great question that I will have to get back to you, Michelle, about. That's actually a great question. I will. Yeah. So I would imagine being able to import in there would be very helpful. I want to say there's a way, but I need to check in with our tech team. Oh, thank you. All right. So this is what our this particular step looks like. As you can see, it's actually a lot more streamlined than what it was because previously you kind of have to go through more steps, but in here it's actually a lot easier for us. But it doesn't mean that we don't have the resources still. And so we definitely want to make sure that you know there are resources in here that you may still find to be helpful. I think, yeah. So there are notification letters and things like that as well. So if you would like to continue to use some planning tools, they are available in here. So, but from now until August, to quickly show you what that process looks like in our previous platform, our step 2 looks like this. There's a decision tree that you can access. And then we actually have a tool that is not as relevant right now because all the data will then go into the platform itself. So you don't have to use a separate spreadsheet for that. And this is the precision tool. So let me jump back to the slides really quickly, and then we'll come back and look at the tool as well as the curriculum itself in there. Okay. So this is how to add a student. This is how, if you want to determine acquisition or performance needs, you want to select that. So let's dig a little bit deeper into what's in the acquisition base versus performance-based curriculum. Again, some of you may be very familiar with that, but I do want to highlight that we are doing a total rebuild of our Tier 2 curriculum. And so for some of these sessions, they are actively being reworked on, and we'll show you a sample of that new session and what that's going to look like. But our acquisition-based support, these are small group and skill support for students to learn and practice together. They group into four main areas or skill area that we call it. Um, if students have internalizing emotions, we talked a little bit about what that looks like. Then we have the coping curriculum in the younger grades and elementary grades in pre-K and K. The coping curriculum, it's actually called Courage. That's what we'll call it also for our elementary grade. For middle school and secondary, that will remain to be called coping. Then we have students that maybe need more support in having externalizing emotions and behaviors. We have regulation. And middle school and secondary will continue to call it regulation. But for our pre-K to K, as well as our elementary curriculum, we will call it calm. So you get to see what one of those sessions looks like in a moment. And then we have relationships. So this is for students who have social skills needs. And also we have a self-management, which is about executive functioning. For younger grades, for our elementary grades, that's actually being called responsible. So we have some new names for our skill groups so that it will be a little bit easier for our younger students. So those are four main areas in acquisition. For our performance base, we have our six different environmental support. These are designed to encourage and motivate. And based on what students are motivated by, you will be able to select them and figure that out. Oh, one thing that I apologize. I will go back and show you what it looks like. The motivation or what type of things will motivate a student, it's actually in the description. So before you select it, it will tell you exactly which performance-based intervention or practice will be the most appropriate based on the motivation that the student needs in order for them to perform. So that's all embedded in the platform as well to help you make that decision. And then we have attendance needs. If a student is chronically absent, then you would choose attendance support. They need to be there, right, in order for us to do anything. So if that is what they're struggling with the most, then that is what we suggest that you select. Yeah, again. So right here, that's what I meant by how based on what the student is motivated by. Again, we'll have to change the wording. I apologize that I just realized that it's not a small group focused on teaching specific skills. I think that is what a mistake that we've made. But right here, it will tell you if a student is motivated by certain things, then you want to choose that specific support. So everything is kind of embedded in the selection process, so you can just see what you would like to choose. Um, Currently in our current platform, this is what it looks like. So if you would like to kind of brush up on this in terms of what acquisition support versus performance support is, then these tools that's in the current platform will be very helpful. And currently, before the new platform is done, these cards are designed to just kind of help you think through what the student needs the most. And that's there. And based on what they're motivated by, then we have a recommended practice that you will select. So that's that. Let me go. Let me pause for a moment and see if there's any questions about the selection part or the analysis part? No question yet? Okay. So we'll quickly talk about developing a plan, and then in the implementation, in step 4, that's when we will dive in and look at the curriculum and look at the supports and what's available there. So step 3, it's actually develop a plan. Now that we have defined analyzing and selecting what support is needed, then our next step is to develop a plan. Let me ask you this, if you can please drop it into the chat. Why is creating a plan valuable? Why would we even bother? To target the intervention, yes. I agree, Tony. Saves time. To document and communicate. Yes. Those are great points. Yes. So when we think about targeting, right, we're definitely developing a plan so that we can increase the likelihood of implementing precisely what we're selected to do, right? And we want to select it with fidelity. But the other important piece at which Michelle is bringing up is to document, meaning that when we have a plan, that's the only way that we're able to gather the data, right? It's with when we have a plan that we know exactly where we're heading. And it will allow us to gather the data that we need to inform our decisions, what is going to happen next. It also helps us identify the core components of the intervention and then make sure we know who's doing what. A part of the plan is definitely being able to know who is going to do what. And just now, when I was adding the support, it asked me to determine like who, where, and who and when we're going to be doing that support. So having a plan like that is important because it makes us think through who's going to be responsible for this. Is it me? Is it somebody else who's going to actually doing the support? And then important dates as well. Yes. And Megan says to provide intentional support. Yes, so that it is intentional. Having a plan is really important. And the and very important part in your plan needs to be the core components, right? So we need to know what it's going to happen, where it's going to happen, and we want to make sure that we are assigning responsibility. So, this is when we're creating the group. Just now, we spoke about actually creating a performance or selecting a performance review. But let's come back here and pretend that we're actually setting up a group. So let's say that we are setting up a skill building support. This is another way that you can start. Of course, we want you to start with the student and determine who is going to be in there. But let's say that I'm going to start a 3 to 5 group. And out of these, I think right now we have the biggest needs for regulation. Again, I want to remind us to think about what capacity we have, right? And what our needs are. Right now, maybe our highest needs is a lot of students with externalizing behaviors. And if we have the capacity to start one group to start with, maybe this is where we'll start. So this is where I would create the group. Let me just call this a regulation 3 to 5 group. And I'm going to start that maybe August 19th. And then I'm going to assign the facilitator. Let's say that I'm going to assign it to myself. And then I go next Then I can ask students that I have added myself, so they're not in the right grade. So let's say that I'm just kind of adding it for the sake of adding it. Let me just add a couple. Really sad. There'll be three Rosalind, one facilitating and two and a student. So I'm gonna go ahead and save it. So that way I would be able to set up my plan for the group. I can see who the students are, what I can determine what their status is. If I need to pause a student, I can come in here and put someone on pause. This allows me to remove somebody if they're no longer there, or if I'm starting a group with two students and then I add more later, I can always assign students here. Then I can come to the curriculum site. This is where I would be able to go through the different sessions. They are ordered a little bit differently, but it is organized the same way, meaning that you will always have a place where you can see all the delivery resources. So this is not the current right now. We'll wait for the new thing to launch. But all the resources, family resources, mentor resources, will be in that first square that you saw there. And then you can start with the session. And again, this is not how it's going to look because that has changed. But you will be able to get through the different sessions here. This is what the progress monitoring will look like. Once you've chosen a behavior to increase and a behavior to decrease, you will be able to add that. That results can be downloaded as well. So if you need to download that and have that available somewhere, there is that option. Then I also want to indicate fidelity, meaning how many sessions does this particular student goes? Are there makeup sessions that they needed to be receiving? And again, you can download that data as well. So this is what it looks like. Just want to quickly show you what the group plan can look like for us. And very similarly with a student that is receiving support in performance-based support. This is what it looks like. Again, let's do check and check out. Then I can assign the student to it. Let's say it will have a tab for support resources. So it's a little bit different than the group because it's not all the students there. But I can come here to enter my fidelity data. I can also enter my progress monitoring data here, which is currently still under construction, but it'll be ready for you in August. So this is what it looks like in terms of the student record. Questions about what that looks like? If I to answer a couple of the questions first, what is the suggested group size? For our small group, it's usually recommended that it's like from 6 to 8. However, we also think that smaller group is totally fine too. If you do have the capacity or if you don't have as big as a need, doing like we've seen groups being successfully run with 2 to 4 students in there as well. So depending on what your needs and capacity is. Um, Corporation High is actually our testing or our sample cases. So Corporation High is just a name that we put all of our sample students that we create during training or demonstration in. So that's what that is. If I do this from my account, can the school counselor or general education student see their progress and assignments as well? So there is the difference between the school support and my support. I think it depends on whether, and so if you have like different schools, you definitely can choose the school just to show the school supports show all the students. So depending on your level of rights in terms of what you can see. Otherwise, like for me, I can click my support and this will only be my groups that I'm working on. For example, these are my students I'm working on. Yeah. So as you can see, it's actually a lot more streamlined. Exciting to know that the analytics it's actually being under construction right now. Um, However, like I've been able to see a glimpse of it, and it's actually definitely very advanced comparing to what we had. So I'm excited and proud to be presenting to all that to you in August. So. If you think that, oh, I'm not ready to add all the students yet, just like with the current tier two, you can take a look at the curriculum. You can click on intervention library. That is the option where you would be able to do a quick review. So if you want to preview, I really appreciate the fact that like for Rhonda, for example, you're new to this and becomes like very overwhelming. And I'm hearing that you're willing to explore. So once you get access to something like this, definitely exploring this would be helpful so that you can see, what type of performance support are we talking about? What type of skill support? What type of attendance support? Okay, so I'm gonna jump back to our presentation. Nice. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time thinking about that, but I do invite you to think about what the planning plan looks like. Because if we think about that, this is a team process. So I want to invite you to think about what that looks like, what the decision-making process is going to look like, and who the team members are that will be involved in that process. So once you have developed a plan, and you know what student is in need of what support, you know what support you're going to be launching, then we go to step four. Step four has implementation and monitoring of progress. So we'll start with the implement. So when you have the plan, then we would want to implement the plan. And again, these are what components you're going to be implementing. I'm going to fly through this because we've kind of touched on that a little bit. But this is just a way for you to kind of get that repetition in terms of what those supports are. So we start with acquisition base. There are 4 curriculum areas for that: coping, regulation, relationships, and self-management. And know that we use evidence to create logic models that then informs our content, the structure, and the scope and sequence of what students will learn during these. Our acquisition base support is for students that we know are struggling, not because they not because they're not motivated, but it's because they are lacking in some skills. And so when they are given the opportunity to learn these skills, then they can meet the demands and expectations. And this is just a quick slide about the science of how it works. We've been told that people really appreciate that. And what we are focusing on in our coping and regulation. Our coping again is for internalizing, and regulation is for externalizing emotions and behaviors. Then we focus on providing the knowledge so that we can build self-awareness as well as emotional vocabulary. So whether they understand what emotions are. And then we build skills. Through modeling, through practice that are built into the sessions, we make sure that they are building their skills. We also want to, throughout like all the curriculum, we use an approach that helps them change their mindset so that they know emotions can be changed. And the format of all these acquisition support, it's based on small group, and then we have school mentor as well as a family focus. So all of that, it's included in the solution because we believe that that will allow us to bring the proximal outcome, which leads to the immediate outcome, intermediate outcome. Um, when they are internalized, when they have internalizing emotions and behaviors, we hope to improve their confidence and well-being. When they have externalizing, behaviors, then we want to improve their behaviors and also improve their engagement so that they can have positive interactions. So just to kind of give you an idea about what our internalizing curriculum is about, is to help them understand that they have powers actually over what they think, what they feel in their bodies, and what they do. And so we'll help them learn these powers, and they would be able to kind of practice courage for our students that are coming into internalizing, a lot of times that can be a sadness. So we allow them to learn the power of activities, of positive activities. This is a behavioral activation type of practice from evidence that works for students with internalizing sadness or worries. And then we also do like a power about gradually being exposed to challenging and hard situations that helps with students that have anxiety. Then for our externalizing, the powers are about being able to calm their bodies, change their thinking from unhelpful to helpful thinking, as well as doing relaxation to relax their bodies. And also, too, an important part of why we say there's like we want it to lead to the intermediate outcome of positive interaction is that we have when a student that has externalizing behaviors that have potentially hurt somebody or some relationship, we have a session about making it right so that they can learn how to do conflict resolution if they've hurt somebody. So that's what's included in there as the intermediate outcome. And then we have the distal outcome because we know once those change, we are looking at the distal outcome of academic performance, successful developmental transition, and longer term well being. So that's what it looks like for coping and regulation. It looks a little bit different for our executive functioning curriculum because it's more about identifying their executive functioning needs so that we can provide them with the self-management tools and there will be an immediate impact so that they have the tools to better manage it and that the ultimate outcome to help them succeed in the school environment. The educators' involvement in helping them with their use of the tools is actually very important in our executive functioning curriculum. Then we have relationship skills. Again, there's self-awareness, social awareness, which helps them work through how to establish relationship, how to cooperate with others, how to resolve conflict, and how to pause. We call it the pause power versus reacting. And pro-social behaviors and all of that. And belonging and inclusion helps them with reaching the distal outcome of academic and engagement performances. So that's what it looks like. All of our skill building curriculum has the three core components, as you saw in the previous slides. We have 8 weeks of small groups lessons, with the exception of executive functioning. That one's actually shorter because we have more of what we call like additional educator support for them to use those tools. So that one has 6 group sessions. And then they are actually shortened. So the new curriculum is a lot significantly shorter than before. And they are set to be about 10 to 30 minutes. And then there are additional coaching sessions to teach them how to use the tools. Those are usually what we call like practice sessions. And they develop a personalized plan for that. Then there is the mentoring piece. We do have topic-specific training on mentoring, and the mentors that are supporting your use of the skill building curriculum will have a couple of asynchronous learning videos that they can watch in order to understand their role in supporting. So there's daily mentoring support, which can be the educator or maybe another person that can support as well. There is communication to the family and with the family to support this process. This is what the current sessions are. We still use this instructional model, but note that the way that it's laid out is no longer 5 different sections. So one of the feedback that we've received from our customers is definitely the fact that having to click through 5 different sections is really confusing. So with the new setup, it's actually not the same. So it's kind of all included. And for the start, the connect, and the learn, and the exit, there is a start poster that students can do, but there's a slide that kind of goes over that as well. So it can all be embedded together. And then the exit, instead of it being a different section, it's actually all incorporated into the session at the end as a mission ticket for the students. And for the extend, which is the mentor communication and family communication, they are set up in a way where you can just copy the text and you can put it in an email to be sent to the family and also to the mentor. So all of that is condensed. It's still in the same model, meaning that we always have a start task, we always connect first before we learn and practice, and we always wrap up group with some exit tasks. So that model didn't change, but the way that it's presented in the platform for you has changed. So I'll show that in a moment. Let me get to a question really quickly. Would you suggest student only to receive either performance-based or acquisition support, or can both be provided? That's a great question, Christina. Um, yes, actually, we all almost always think that starting with one is helpful, especially based on your capacity too. So if your team has a lot of capacity, then it's okay to do more. But if you have a student that's presenting with a lot of needs, attendance is probably the one that we say to go first because they need to be there. And then we also think that starting with a performance-based need may be the most significant one that you can provide. So that's usually the recommendation. But if you do have the capacity in order to do all of them or more than one, I don't. I think one of my students that I've set up as a sample, I've added both. So you are able to add both the performance and the acquisition need, if
Is
that's
it
okay.
okay if I unmute and speak just because it's kind of hard to type what I have to
Yeah.
say? Okay. So I guess my question is, I've been using this for a year, the tier two, and
Mhm.
I'm so excited about these changes. I'm like thrilled. But one of the main things is that I find if I see a student in a group for, let's say, coping, it's very hard because I'm not with the student all day. You know, their
Mhm.
teacher is. So it's like, how is there some kind of way or something we can send teacher? Some kind of connection so that the teachers are like, okay, here's what the student is learning in group. Like now, like, because they're the ones that have to actually have the student do it or observe the student doing it, using it, you know, kind of, or remind the student if the student is, let's say, really anxious. Like, we learn this in group. You know, remember, you learned this with Mrs. Fuel. Like,
Mhm.
how can you know, is there some kind of like, I see the family connect. Is there some kind of educator connect to the classroom to make sure there's that transfer and application of what's done in the groups? I felt like that was something that was like really difficult for me to manage.
I love the way that you are thinking. So I think the one option or one of the best way to do this is if that educator is actually willing to be the mentor. Because we have the mentor communication that is going out after each group. And also in the mentor communication too, because they do have a couple of trainings that they have to watch, but asynchronously, so they can just click on it. It's like no more than 10 minutes, so it's really short. But for them to understand what the group is about, for them to understand what that plan is going to look like, the personalized plan it's going to look like, and how they can support. So I think some schools are actually having their educators to be the mentor, and that seems like that's probably the best way. Now, with our executive functioning, instead of having a mentor, it's actually an educator focus. So the training is on educators on how to use the desk tools with the student. So that one, I think, instead of, having to figure out how to invite an educator to also be a mentor, um, you would just need to have them be involved as an educator.
So
So,
would you suggest that's a great idea. Like I never really thought of because I actually never used the mentor thing because I was like, I don't know who would do it. It's
of
just me.
course.
I'm the only counselor. So if we kind of design the model as like the teacher is like by default, and I could do like team when like we have grade level team meetings, I could do like the mentor training at like a team meeting so the teachers know you're going to be the mentor of any student who's in a group and this is what you're going to need to do.
Hmm.
And there are
Yeah.
like videos for that to share with teachers and stuff.
Yes, because
Great.
there will be like training sessions for the mentors. And so one thing that you may also want to consider too is how if it's students from the same class as the same
Mhm.
educator, they can even do because as the mentor, we do ask them to do a quick check-in at the beginning of the day, quick check-in at the end of the day. And it's very brief, and we actually give them specific steps about, this is the question you ask, or this is what you can remind the student. And with that mentoring log, they can do multiple students. If there are multiple students in the same group, they can do the check in, check out together if they don't have a lot of time. But the check in, check out, or like what we call them, the morning and the afternoon, it's going to be like a 15-second thing where they're just checking in with the student.
Yeah, I don't want to put more on their plates.
Yeah, yeah. So and they can
Then
do it
I will not
together.
be very well liked by the teachers.
Yeah, and they
Okay,
can do it
thank you.
together so it doesn't have to be, multiple meetings. So they can just check in, oh, so and so and so and like we have three students that's in the group, and we can just do the check-in together in the morning really quickly. And the log has the questions to ask or the things to remind them of. All of that, it's already set up for you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Yes, Michelle, that's definitely the intention to show you a new lesson and what that looks like. To answer Katie's question, for performance-based, your two support is there data collection step? Yes. Well, another thought too, Christina, too, is because you can set up who the progress monitoring informant is, right? So if that is the mentor and if that is the educator, they will be the person that can give you that data. They can also just give you the log, which also has that, in order to figure out whether we have done the mentoring part too. So does CST2 recommend or provide tools for that matching process? Yes, actually, if I go in here. So if you go to a student that has that support, let me for performance support, for example. So there are resources for you to implement the performance supports, and then there's the fidelity. So this is where you would enter in whether they done, because this one is the check in, check out. So you will have that set up where you're entering the data here. So depending on what goal and whether they remind students, the rating, reinforcement, and that would give you um, the data for each of the week. Then you can come here to progress monitoring to monitor that. Again, I've seen what it looks like on the other end, and it will take all of that and put it in a graph for you. So I hope that answered your question, Katie, but let me know if I need to clarify more. Thank you. All right. I'm so glad that we were able to talk a little bit about the mentoring because this is what it looks like. So mentoring actually begins once the student has been selected to be a starting group. And there is asynchronous learning for the mentor. It's very short, but it's the mentor is the person who checks in and checks out with the student each day. And this is what I think some of our educators are doing already. If you've been able to work with them, then the goal is for them to support the student to practice using their plan. Also, just an idea about being creative. I have heard of systems and buildings that would invite other people in other roles to be the mentor. So if that student is involved in sports, sometimes having that coach to be the mentor, it's most helpful because if they go to practice anyway after school, just have to set up like a check-in in the morning so that way they will be able to have a trusted adult. I've also seeing that if you have like a security guard that has that training to support student, they don't have to do a lot. Again, everything is in that mentoring log and it will guide you through what you will remind the student of. So that is also a possibility. So and it could be even a librarian or somebody. So mentoring can be a very meaningful experience for the student, but also for the adult that will be providing that. So remember that in the training, we will talk about how the mentor can do role modeling, can practice, can remind the student, can reinforce what the student is putting efforts in developing the skills on, and review what went well. So those are the 4 R's that will be in the training for the mentors as well. So yeah, those are the 4 R's right there. And then we have the family support part. Um, it begins on the outset through obtaining permission. Um, you have probably seen a little bit of how we have had the consent forms, active or passive. I've also heard that some states actually do require active consent, but we have those forms available on the platform for you. But the family support actually begins there. Okay. And then there are video modules to help them what the student's learning, and then there is the email that you can do. I've also seen some systems be very creative. Instead of sending out email, they've just kind of copied that text that we have after group and put it into like a slip of paper and send that home with the family. So if you think that email access may not be as easy for some families, having it on like a very small, like a piece of paper. Know that there's also a mission ticket that it's included now. And the student is supposed to do a mission at the end of each session, and they can have the ticket and bring it to the family, bring it to the mentor so that they can sign off on it. And the facilitator can use it as a way to encourage them to do the missions, and they can do a big celebration at the end, depending on how many missions have been completed by the students in the group. So all of that's been built in as well. And again, there's weekly prepackaged family focused communication. So it can either be sent through email or if you want to do like a quick newsletter, that can be done too. I think this is really important before we look at the new curriculum. One thing that is important I want to quickly point out is that we want to talk about small wins, meaning let's think about where to start It doesn't have to be that by the start of the school year, I need to have all four skills group lined up. What we suggest is actually to identify one or even two of you have the capacity of the small group curriculum and then start with that and build from there. So don't feel like you have to start every single group out of the four. Um, it's always helpful to start maybe just watching some of the available videos and the curriculum overviews, which will all be new and launch in August as well for our new curriculum. And also, too, it may be a great discussion to have to think through, which I appreciate so much that Christina is thinking about that already in terms of, who the mentoring people are and how can we get the family engaged in this process as well. So I am going to have us explore together instead of you exploring it. And the good news is you can actually access this, but I want to show you really quickly where you can access this. The sample sessions are actually right here. So if you go to your left panel, scroll down all the way to where it says curriculum samples. And if you click tier 2, now the two that we want you to look at, the pre-K was actually updated, I believe like mid last year. So this is newer. That's but it's designed to be more age appropriate for younger kids. But the new ones are really your grades 1 to 2 and grades 3 to 5. We don't have our secondary samples just yet for that because the process is not as drastic in terms of the changes. But I'm going to go ahead and look at 3 to 5 with you all together. Okay. So again, the instructional model is still the same. This is one of the sessions within our what is it? Relationship. This is actually in our calm sessions, which is the regulation for our students with externalizing emotions and behaviors. So this is what it looks like. Again, the instructional model is still the same, but it's all contained together in one. This is the entry poster. So you group facilitators can have this up. So every single time you're always going to start with a temperature check, with a mission check, which is checking how they did with the last mission. And then in the first session of every group, they are not every group, but every skill area, they will come up with two group agreements. So it's embedded in the curriculum where you would decide which ones to use and then you can attach it. And so your poster will allow you to do your start tasks as well as your exit tasks together. Then this is your slide deck. And I'll go through the slide deck. But for those that have been using our Tier 2 curriculum, you will remember those very long educator script. We are moving away from that, and now you have a one-page facilitator guide. This will allow you to see all the important information at the top right here. This will remind you to do your poster routine, as well as what the connection game it's going to be, and then the purpose of that particular session and the materials that you would need for that session. And the facilitator guide will tell you what slides and how much time. It would also give you some script. So unlike the previous educator scripts, it's not telling you word for word how to say some stuff, but there will be some suggestions on what you can say in terms of wording you want to use. And then it will also tell you to give you some instructions about how to run that particular part. I'm very proud to say that we've actually had some pilot sessions. We've had some facilitators that help us pilot this with real students, and their response have been very positive. We continue to take their feedback and try to improve on all things, but the feedback has been very positive. So it will walk you through the teach, model, and practice within the session. This is a third to fifth grade session. And for our first to second grade, we usually aim to be around 15 minutes. For our third to fifth grade, we try to aim it for like around 20. For this particular one, with your like with this, it would be about 22 minutes. And then so if you add the entry task, which is like a minute or two, and your exit task, which also is, so you would be done within 25 minutes for the whole session. So that's what our facilitator guides looks like. This is what the session looks like. And the connection game, it's all embedded. So you don't have to click through different sections in order to look at this. This is a connection game. Students always prompt to do a deep breathing in the very first session of every group of skills. There will always be the breathing where they are learning how to breathe, and this will always start their session. So they'll always get ready to learn with the breathing, and then this particular session talks about how to the power to change what we think. So this is a part of the cognitive behavioral therapy approach. This talks about that we have embedded in there some videos, some of them from our Purposeful People Tier 1 curriculum, some from our safety unit. So we have some new videos that are embedded in there that you can just play. And then there are different engagement strategies that is involved in there. The facilitator guides helps you come up with words if you think will be helpful, but it also, if you just want to look at the slides, it reading the facilitator guide will prepare you so that when you are facilitating the session, you don't necessarily have to keep looking back at the facilitator guide. Because a lot of things are actually on the slides already. That's what we try to do. And the thought power is to catch the unhelpful thought. So they would get to click and it would say unhelpful. If they say, I can't do this, it's not helpful. So there will be some interaction within the slides that you can do with the students too. Some activities there. And then there will be practice of changing a thought into a helpful thought, right? So then there'll be an activity that they would do, but all of that, it's on the slide. And then it will direct you back to the exit ticket, no, exit part of the poster. So this is what it looks like. And then the extent looks like this. It's a lot shorter than what maybe you have been used to. But all you need to do is there will be a copy email button where you can just copy that and then put it into an email or a newsletter to be sent to the mentor and then to be sent to the family as well. So
But
that's what a
what
newsletter.
is the exit though? It doesn't say, it says exit, but what is their mission? Does it?
Yeah, that it's actually in the session itself, like this one, it's the sample, so that's why it doesn't have it. But the new
Oh,
one, like the real one, will actually have this is your mission for your next session.
oh, like it does now, like it does now.
Yeah. So
Okay.
here it is too, right here. So in the facilitator guide, it's there to inform students that their mission this week is to do this. And if you look at the mission post, if the entry poster, So there's just two things where you're telling them what the mission is for next week, and then you do a quick check about have we been able to stick to the group agreements. So, and they do, 1 to 5. And that's it.
And they take this poster with them each day?
No, actually, this is something that you as a facilitator can keep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
So it's just a
And
talking piece you talk
yes.
to. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and they do take a mission ticket though. Those will be printed out. Those will be available for you to print out, and make available for the students. Feel free to come here to also look at the other session, which is for first and second grade. So if you want, let me click back to right here. This is also new. So the first to second grade and third to fifth grade is great. This is a fun one too. This is all from a regulation series. It's about leveling up your powers. Yeah. So feel free to explore that. But they will all be in the new curriculum like this. So all the resources will be in the first block, and then you would proceed with each one of these. Yeah. So I'm looking at the time as we're winding down. I want to quickly kind of also show you that our performance-based interventions all have very useful tools within them, as you saw a minute ago. And each one of the 6 practices, there are very detailed support in terms of how you can implement it and what you can use in order to help with that. This is just like a quick review about why using performance-based support is really important. I think sometimes it's easy for us to just jump into, well, let's do skill building, which is great. But then on the other hand, too, some student just needs that motivation, right? So they may have the skill, they just need that motivation. So doing performance support is actually very helpful. So this is very quickly just to let you know if you think that they are motivated by earning access to rewarding experience, then a behavioral contract would be great. If they're motivated by adult attention, then check in, check out, it's great. All of this is embedded in the selection process. So when you do the decision tree, it will give you those clues. It would say, oh yeah, if they're motivated by this, then select this particular support. So we also too, for those of you that are coming to NetCon, we'll see you in July. There is a session specifically on performance-based support for Tier 2. Dr. Clay Cook and Nicole will be doing that particular session. So that would be great if you want to dive even deeper into the 6 behaviorals, performance-based support there. And really quickly, our support that got launched not very long ago, I think less than a year ago. It's very important for us to think about how to support students that need additional help with their attendance. The whole idea in implementing that is to connect, assess, and to support them. So the core components are under the 3, and then in our attendance support, you will find how to implement that. So the goal is for us to build a menu of support. However, we also know that it is hard to think about all these things that we're starting. So we suggest that you start small, perhaps one small group or one performance support, and start helping students and families. And that can help you build that fluency that we were talking about, because that actually builds your capacity rate as well. Okay, so I'm going to actually quickly introduce you to where you can access information on monitoring progress. It's very simple right now on the platform. Again, once you are able to get in there, um, it the monitoring part is actually very easy. However, if you want to explore that before August, you can always come here to step 4, where there are additional support to help you with monitoring. So you can get through some of these steps, which will also be available once we come into the training and resource hub. So you can also look at the live training right now that will be here, but currently it is still in here. And there are quite a lot of training, recorded trainings that will help you with this process. So there are many different topics that will help you right here with progress monitoring. Okay. And then, of course, our last decision to make, our last step within the process is this is what it looks like. Sorry, I think we sort of looked at the progress monitoring a little bit together. But our step 5 is to review and decide to make sure that your team think through when and how to actually move student out of tier 2, or if they need to maintain and to stay there. So these are just information about how to do that. Once you're in the decision center of it, this is also new. When you are looking at it, you probably didn't even see this because this is still being finalized right now. You can come to this place when they've completed the support. You can go to what we call decision center. It will help you view the details and you can make a decision. And there will be information about how you want to make that decision by looking at the data. So this whole process is actually really guided for you to look at the progress monitoring and then make a decision on that. So the decision center is what will be there, and then you can decide whether to have them maintain or fade or move. So there will be suggestions about how you would go about supporting that student as well. Okay, so we started with the checklist. So I do want to invite you, if you want to think through how that is. So I know that our time is up, so feel free to go. I want to drop a link for you. We do have a survey that would be very helpful for us if you wouldn't mind giving us feedback about how we've done with this. Again, we know that this is sort of like an odd session because we are in between the two platforms, but it would be very helpful if you can give us feedback about how you thought this had gone for you. So, Heather, what is the difference between the online learning and the Tier 2 certification training in Seattle? Yes, okay. That's a great question. So, the online learning is actually all included. They are topic specific. So typically they include more of when you're actually using the platform, what are some sore pain points or what are some additional things that you can do to enhance your process. So all the free training usually focuses on that. Our certificate or certification usually involves more than just our products because it is designed for anybody, even if they're not a Character Strong user. So I would say we typically, depending on who's there, certification. So we don't spend as much time on the platform itself, but rather it is more the concepts and action planning. So you think through, ideally, you would go to these certs as a team and you think through what that process is going to look like for your own team with your tools that you have. Plus, if you are a Character Strong user, what would that look like? So it's more for you to kind of envision what that looks like for you. And the online product embedded training are more like as you're using it, it helps you actually in the implementation process. I hope that helps. And let me know if you have other questions too. Yeah. But thank you so much for spending time with me. Thank you. We have
Thank you.
Christine.
This is so exciting. I've been, like I said, I've been using it for a year and like seeing those new changes. Oh, like, wow. I'm so excited to like have even just the ease of using the, not having the long, like what to say and the script and like having it so condensed and a lot more of it on the actual slides and all. Oh, wow. It's so exciting. I can't wait. Thank you
Yay.
so much.
Thank you, Christina. I'm so excited about that. Very cool. Take care, everybody. Thank you for joining.